Hey everybody, so how we doing today? So, I don't know about you, but I kind of feel like that whole Iran situation is a little weird. I mean, they talk about threats from Iran, but other than the attacks on oil tankers and such, there really haven't been many verbal threats. I can't find any reference to the threats that they claim were being said. And now I get word that there was a missile launch into the Green Zone near the U.S. Embassy. And security forces later found the rocket launcher, but don't know who operated it. And there were no casualties. In fact, it landed in a place where literally nobody was. Almost like maybe a short in the wiring caused it to go off by itself or something. The situation is very strange. And now, not only that, but Iran had a nuclear program that ended in 2003, and now they're pretending that, or at least pretending that it did not happen. Or if it did, if they did have a nuclear program, who knows, maybe they're innocent. There's only a couple of references to the nuclear program from 2003. But nonetheless, the situation is going forward, and it is rather interesting. See, the Pentagon is talking about, or at least they're saying that Washington's peace-oriented threats towards Iran have paid off. Or at least that would be according to the Defense Secretary Patrick Shanahan, who says that the Islamic Republic had to put on hold its violent plans thanks to the U.S. efforts. Except again, the only references to threats we get are a possible an attack on 4 oil tankers, which might have been Iran, might have been the Iranian Guard, and just a few references by our own government. So, yeah, I gotta wonder if those threats ever actually took place. But while Iran has repeatedly denied allegations that they are responsible for recent tensions and said that they prefer diplomacy to threats, Shanahan on Tuesday was certain that Tehran's dangerous behavior had only been curbed by the U.S.'s proactive measures. Of course, someone in our government would think that they were somehow responsible for this. Ho ho! I hate these. Sometimes I really hate these jokers. These peacekeeping gestures presumably included sending a Navy strike group to Iran's border, ratcheting up crippling sanctions and President Donald Trump's amiable threat to end the country altogether. Amiable threat. Well, if there was ever an oxymoron. One does not make a threat amiably. Wow. That's like military intelligence. But of course, then they now say, of course, I think our steps were very prudent, and we've been put on hold in the potential for attacks on Americans. And that is what is extremely important, Shanahan told reporters at the Pentagon without providing any specific information as to what they were. The unexplained steps are about as clear as the U.S.'s accusations against Iran in the first place. Trump is on the record saying that there is no indication that anything is happening or will happen in terms of Iranian provocations. But he also promised to use great force in the event they do. Indeed, he did. But this is partly his fault, because it was Trump's decision to abandon the deal that restricted Iran's potential pathway to developing a nuclear bomb, in return for relief from economic sanctions. This angered Tehran, and they are now accusing Washington of breaking its word. Iran denies ever having a nuclear program, even though I said earlier that there is a few references to an earlier program, which was in 2003. And there were a few pictures, but nothing you could make a serious dossier out of. I kind of feel like this is sort of similar to the whole situation with Iraq and the supposed WMDs, that it turned out there were no WMDs and that it was fake. It was fake news, I believe is the modern terminology. Now, in regards to low-grade uranium enrichment, what's really going on in Iran right now is that while the Iranian news service recently reported on a 4-fold increase in Iran's rate of production of low-grade uranium enrichment, Some might see that as a red flag. But in reality, it would seem that one of their officials had stated that the Semi-Tasnim News service said that Iran was accelerating the rate of production at which it refines uranium to 3.67% fissile purity, which is suitable for civilian nuclear power generation, which would have nothing to do with building nuclear missiles. Lots of countries want nuclear power. Personally, nuclear power makes me nervous as hell. I mean, have we so suddenly forgot about Chernobyl? I mean, seriously. There is so much that can go wrong with a nuclear power generator. I mean, hey, call me a scaredy cat, but that kind of shit, like, when you know that much about what could possibly go wrong, you kind of can't help but think about the worst case scenario, you know? It really kind of pushes my panic button. But admittedly, at the same time, you look at the benefits of nuclear power over traditional electricity, and it can't be denied. It's cleaner, safer, more efficient in a lot of ways. Sure, there's the danger of like a reactor meltdown. Hell, fuck Chernobyl. What about the Fukushima? Sorry, getting off the track here. But this was 2 weeks after Trump sought to block all Iranian oil exports. Iran said it would relax some of its commitments under the accord it struck with Britain, China, France, Germany, Russia, and the United States. Under the deal negotiated by the administration of Trump's predecessor, Barack Obama, Iran was allowed to stockpile up to 300 kegs of low-enriched uranium and ship any excess out of the country for storage or sale. And they brilliantly negotiated that buffer. It's rather impressive capitalism skills. Iran said that this month that cap no longer applied in response to the United States' withdrawal from the deal. I would tend to agree. If Washington decided to pull us out of the deal, then they would be in the right. It was not clear how far Iran's LEU stock was from the 300 kg limit. Under the deal, Iran can enrich uranium at 3.67%, well below the 90% purity required to make bombs, and the 20% level to which Iran enriched before the deal. Now, in regards to the kind of force Trump wants to bring to bear, as he said before, he warned of great force being brought to bear should they become aggressive. But apparently some sources within Washington strongly suspect that Shiite militias with ties to Tehran were behind the rocket attack in the Baghdad Green Zone. Now, Trump has stated, "I think Iran would be making a very big mistake if they did anything. If they do something, it will be met with great force, but we have no indication that they will." You know, in his typical Trumpy fashion. But two sources within Washington, within the White House, suspect Shiite militias. And there's tensions again between the Shiites and the Sunnis on either side of Tehran. So, wonderful times. This situation could potentially lead to a war with Iran, and it's a war that we cannot afford financially. We don't have the budget, we don't have the economy, we don't have the money. But some people in Washington aren't listening. And quite frankly, it seems to me that Tehran has not been acting particularly threatening at all. Rather, I think a few subversive underground forces within Tehran are the ones that are really behind this situation. Some people who don't agree with the more peaceful sort of negotiating tactic type politics. They would prefer something a little more jihadist. Either way, in the end it doesn't matter. I don't think that Tehran can really hurt this country, nor do I believe that we can afford to go to war. Let the politicians shout at each other in a vacuum for all I care. This is all a bunch of silly crap anyway.